Welcome, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Michelle Souter, and I'm the Senior Marketing Manager for Dow's Food and Specialty Packaging business. I've been in the industry for 17 years and have been with Dow for the last 3. I'm excited to introduce today's session to you titled Flexible by Design, Stop the Waste, Close the Loop. The title is tied to the packaging industry's commitment to find better solutions to improve end-of-life options for flexible packaging. Many companies have formalized targets on how they will enable the collection and recycling of plastic and ensure that 100% of packaging films are recyclable or reusable in the future. To achieve these goals, design for recyclability and moving towards mono-material structures is a critical element. Because of the diversity of applications and types of packages used in the industry today, new technologies and solutions are being developed to continue to advance towards 100% recyclable structures. Today's panel will bring perspective and the latest innovations to enable mono-material structures and will bring perspective about how the value chain is working together to get to the next level. So I'm excited to introduce to you our esteemed panelists. We'll start with Messpac, Guillaume Coffin. He's built a distinguished career as a senior leader with global industrial companies that include Mecalac, Grupo Serra Solidera in Spain, and TGW Logistics Group in Austria. Guillaume joined Messpac as managing director in 2019 and is laser focused on accelerating Messpac growth through product innovation, customer-driven integrated solutions, and the development of more sustainable packages. Guillaume holds a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering and master's degree in organization and management of industrial plants and design from the University of Catalunya in Barcelona. Next, our panelist is Bill Barlow. He's the Sustainability Innovations Manager for PrintPack. Bill has been with PrintPack for 11 years. He started as a product design engineer, eventually moving on to product development manager for a technical group dedicated to blown and cast film development for internal converting and external end user applications. After 8 years in product development, Bill transitioned into sales to serve as the account manager for one of PrintPack's largest CPG customers, focused on delivering flexible packaging solutions for a broad range of end markets. He is now on PrintPack's sustainability team. He holds a BS in Materials Science and Engineering and a master's degree in Polymer Engineering from the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. He also has an MBA from Kennesaw State University. And finally, we have Larry Effler. He's a developmental scientist from Dow, Packaging and Specialty Plastics team. Larry has 30 years of experience in R&D and technical service and development for Dow's polyethylene and elastomers business. In his current role, Larry supports Dow's end-use marketing and sustainability efforts. He works with packaging equipment OEMs, converters, brand owners, and retailers to develop innovative and sustainable packaging solutions. He also works closely with organizations such as Association of Plastic Recyclers and the Sustainable Packaging Coalition to develop more sustainable packaging film applications and test methods. Larry has a PhD in polymer science and engineering from the University of Tennessee at Knoxville and is the author of over 20 publications and 13 patents. So I'm excited to get started with our discussion, and we're going to jump right into the panel questions. So the first question I'd like to hear from you folks about is, what are the latest developments in all PE monomaterial pouches? So Guillaume, do you want to start us off?
Thank you, Michelle, and very pleased to be part of this panel. And thank you for your introduction. And just hello to Bill and Larry, my colleagues in this panel. And well, just going back to your question, Michelle, we are in a long run, and we've done a lot, but it's more that it's going to happen in the future. We are in a continuous improvement process. I would say next is basically in two areas. From a filmmaker perspective, I think that it is needed that we achieve a better or at least same mechanical properties with the monomaterials or the recyclable films compared to the existing non-recyclable ones. And that's something that we try to support from MESPEC, but especially from machine manufacturer and vendor. I think that we have to improve our machines to make them capable to work with these new materials and at least to achieve the same performance, the same results as we have today with the traditional materials. We sincerely believe that based on our continued experience, not only with Dow, with also our customers around the world, and after having made several trials since more than 2 years, we think that that's achievable. It's nothing that it's going to happen in one day. It's nothing that it's going to happen only working on the film side or in the application or only on the machine. It's a solution that will come with a joint effort from a filmmaker, the CPG company, sometimes a retailer, and the machine vendor, something that we have already proven to be possible.
Do you have any specific developments that MESPAC has launched recently that help to address some of the performance differences that you've seen with recyclable films?
Oh, yeah. Many aspects we have improved in our equipment. Basically, we have adopted new sensors and more servo-driven movements that makes the machine to work, let's say, with a more soft treatment of the material. That's basically because we're talking about less forgiving materials. But not only on the sensors and the servo motors, but also just for the better treatment of the film. It's also having the possibility to work with fitments like zipper or spouts, and then preheating, for instance, this is crucial. And you can preheat in several manners. None of them are going to work or not going to deliver the same results. So it's always about the combination between PP or PE or the speed, the throughput of the machine. And that's something that it's crucial to adopt all these technologies that we have developed for the specific application.
Thank you. It makes sense. And I think it leads well into, Bill, maybe you can provide some perspective on the latest advancements from a film producer, standpoint.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it. Made some very good points, and we agree with a lot of what he said there. And one comment in particular is less forgiving material. So as we migrate some packaging to all PE format and pouches, we have to consider the equipment side, the OEM side, the pouching side, how that's all going to affect the process and the filling, et cetera, and what our customers are going to experience when they have packaging that's delivered from PrintPak. But with that said, there's a couple of ways to slice and dice it. We know there's a big rush in a lot of areas to move towards all PE packaging. Maybe some of that low-hanging fruit where CPGs are looking for that opportunity to move some of that low or moderate barrier packaging into an all PE format. First and foremost, we're up against this 2025 initiative here, and we're really down to 52 months, or I think it's 226 weeks to put it in perspective. So the clock is ticking. But at the same note, we recognize that to get to those high barrier levels that are required, or if there's other physical properties that are going to be needed, such as high puncture resistance or tear resistance or child resistance, all of those technologies that we've built in to flexible packaging over the years, we're going to have to develop in the print web space. So some of those oriented films that we're using on the outside of the package, whether that's biaxially oriented polyethylene or machine direction oriented polyethylene, we're going to have to continue to advance those technologies. And at the same time, we're also going to have to continue to engineer our sealant films, with materials that are going to improve, puncture resistance and balance stiffness. So perhaps utilizing some resins from Dow, such as your innate products, in combination with perhaps some other plastomers, other technologies from a sealing perspective to open up a wide processing window on the equipment is extremely important. So we're considering all of those things and working with OEMs as we design for recyclability to ensure that, we can offer the most optimized package possible.
Larry, what about from a resin, from a Dow perspective? What are some of the developments or things that have been recently launched to help address and move more towards mono material design?
Yeah, I think both Bill and Guillaume made very good points. Bill was talking about oriented films, whether that's machine direction oriented or biaxially oriented polyethylene. That is certainly a way to help to make up for the loss of modulus you get when you move from PET down to the polyethylene. And we're finding and developing new resins that can work very well in those orientation processes. So we have a new elite product we're launching in that space. We've launched in Asia Pacific a product that's geared towards biaxially oriented polyethylene, and we're finding different combinations in MDO and BOPE that work in that oriented space as well. We're also looking to expand our compatibilization standpoint. Most folks are aware that our Retain compatibilizer with EVOH can enable EVOH containing structures to be compatible in a polyethylene stream. Recently, a competitor of Bill's got a nylon structure approved through the APR benchmark test using nylon and Retain to compatibilize the nylon. So I think we're going to be seeing more of that. And it's also going to depend upon geographies and legislation or rules that are in place for different geographies as to how monomaterial is. Is 5% EVOH okay? Is 10 okay? At what point does it no longer become polyethylene when you start adding other materials that are compatible in the structure?
Yeah, I think you raise a good point about some of these standards are still emerging, right? That not all of the details have been worked out, and there's still some work to be done on defining that. The other key thing that, as I listened to everyone's comments, it was really clear that multiple resins or polymers are used for reasons, right? And so there's a lot of effort going on at each stage of the value chain to figure out how do we replace those and do it in a way that hopefully doesn't impact performance or speed on the line or all those critical elements that we talk about day in and day out. So great responses and considerations. Bill, I'm going to jump to you and ask a little bit about where you're seeing these all PE or monomaterial pouches being adopted more quickly, and if you could offer some comments about why you think that is.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. So the all PE structure in combination with the store drop-off recycle program. We have a viable technology. We know that there's How to Recycle came out with their statistic about there's 91% of Americans live within 10 miles of a store drop-off bin. So we have accessibility. We're seeing a lot of that transition of perhaps those multi-materials of low barrier, moderate barrier performing products in snacks, dry goods, bakery, household products, some of the non-food, even secondary packages. So your primary package maintains your barrier performance and your product protection, but then you've got an opportunity to bring to replace that multi-material secondary pouch with an all PE structure, right? So that's been kind of the drive right now, and has been over the past couple of years, where we see the adoption of these PE pouches coming along. But that's come with a lot of testing, and to Larry's point about materials, and having balance with heat resistance and stiffness and toughness and sealability and all of those processing conditions. So taking all of those things into consideration over the last several years and engineering those to get them to work on from a roll stock perspective or even pre-made pouches. There's been a lot of work there, but we've been able to work with the market to adopt those changes and those needs to meet some of those commitments and goals. So, but there's from an all PE pouch perspective, there's really no time for fast followers. I mean, like I said before, we're up against a clock ticking, and there's a lot of commitments out there. We want to support those goals that our customers have.
Great, thank you. What are you seeing on where monomaterial pouches are being adopted more quickly?
So basically, Michelle, I'm going to answer your question from a global perspective, and I would say we see a faster adoption driven by basically the public strong commitments that large CPGs like Nestlé, P&G, Unilever, L'Oreal are making. The ones that just Bill mentioned before, and they are really setting the trend, and they are driving the change, and we are supporting these companies, and together with Dow, just helping them in the adoption of these new materials faster than expected at the beginning, and so it's going to be let's say an accelerated process. So that's the reason why we see that the cooperation with the large CPG brands, it's just clearly boosting the adoption or accelerating the adoption of these more, let's say, sustainable materials. The second driver is coming from a geographical perspective, and that's happening especially in the regions markets where their governments are banning strongly against the single use, the single plastic use, or the non-sustainable plastic, the non-recyclable plastics, and this is happening especially in Southeast Asia. So we see another, let's say, driver that is boosting the change for the adoption of these new recyclable solutions.
Okay, thank you for providing the global landscape, because as you alluded to, there are significant differences in rate of adoption and regulatory dynamics. So it's great to have that input. And Larry, anything else to add from your standpoint on where you're seeing this adoption and why?
Yeah, I think initially, while the brands have a lot of these 2025, 2030 commitments out there right now, they're not, I want to say, taking everything broadly right now. They're basically piloting sustainable packaging, if you will, looking for it in smaller niche brands where they think the consumer is going to value that recyclable package. So, it's no coincidence that Kellogg chose to do their first recyclable pouch in their Bare Naked granola brand as opposed to Corn Flakes. It's a smaller volume, less risk, and that consumer is going to value the granola consumer is going to value recyclable packaging more than your cornflake consumer might. So that's where I see them going after. They're going after sort of the low hanging fruit right now. I think Bill made a good point prior about how when brands are looking at new packaging, new resets, that's when they're more interested in looking at recyclable packaging as opposed to trying to go to retrofit something that's already in place, because this is not a drop-in solution. It takes some work. You got to make some changes in order to get an all polyethylene structure to run in place of a polyester PE laminate. So there's a lot of changes that have to happen from a processing standpoint, a design standpoint, a fabricating standpoint. So when you're doing something new, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, you raise a good point about working with brand owners closely, and as they are launching new products, I'm sure the design for recyclability is a top priority, and starting with kind of those smaller brands where they can get some successes and then build from there makes complete sense. So thanks for that. Moving on, I think you guys have each mentioned some good comments around the importance of value chain collaboration as we, get closer and closer to the goals in 2025. So maybe Larry, coming to you, can you talk a little bit about why you see value chain collaboration as being so important?
Yeah, because right now we're all on a learning curve. I don't think any one member of the value chain has all the solutions to the problems. as I mentioned, these are not drop-in solutions, and there's a lot of different pieces. Again, with using the Bare Naked example, there were challenges in printing that film. There were challenges in fabricating the pouch. We needed the zipper manufacturer involved in order to get a zipper that we could crush the ends on to make a hermetic seal. So not any one of us had all the different pieces of the problem and all the solutions to those problems. And so it took a true team effort and a commitment by the brand owner really to work through those problems when they arose. It's easy, when you run into an obstacle for someone just to throw up their hand and say, "Oh, well, we can't do this. I guess we'll move on," as opposed to trying to actually solve the problem and work through it to get to a solution.
Bill, how does PrintPak think about value chain collaboration?
It's absolutely a necessity. As Larry said, the cooperation from downstream and upstream as a converter in the middle of that from, resin supply or technology supply, we also are feeding into the equipment and need to understand that as well. So working together is the only way that we're going to all learn and make it better for the industry, right? It's just an extremely important facet of this whole development is having that engagement. So I know in working with Dow and companies like Messpac and other OEMs that we all want this to be a success. So we recognize that we can't do it ourselves, and our goal going forward here as part of our Office of Sustainability team at PrintPak is to form those partnerships that we want to move forward, and we see that there's a right fit for the right supplier and the right OEM and working all together. So extremely important, Michelle.
Yeah, so I good point about the packaging film producers or converters. I mean, you guys end up being right in the center of everything, right? You're kind of the middle point between resin providers and brand owners, and obviously interact also with the OEMs. So it's good to hear your perspective and how you're kind of addressing that. Guillaume, what are your thoughts from a OEM perspective, Messpac perspective, on the importance of value chain collaboration?
As Larry and Bill said, that's a necessity, and we're strong believers on the cooperation. That's going to deliver huge potential, and we are practitioners of this cooperation, and that's the reason why we are co-investing with Dow in having a unit of us in Pack Studios, Freeport, Texas, and also here in Barcelona, and we're doing that together because we believe that putting the CPG brand, the filmmaker, the film converter, why not, as well as the machine manufacturer all together in the same room delivers a superior performance, a superior cooperation in terms of the result and in terms of the timing. Think about CPG based in Switzerland or based in Southeast Asia or in North America. Messpac producing the machines in Barcelona, and Dow developing the resin in Freeport, and PrintPak just from their headquarters. It would be very, very difficult to have everybody sitting at the same room with a very short time. And you should just make the film, ship it to our factory, do the test, send it to PrintPak, and it will take simply too long. It's taking too slow. And by having our unit in Freeport, Pack Studios, we will do everything together faster and with better results. And that's happening now in September, and hopefully soon in Singapore, Pack Studios as well.
Yeah, that's a good point that, as Bill's alluded to, the clock is ticking, and as we get closer and closer to those goals, expediting things and developments will certainly become more and more critical. So that's great perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, the pandemic certainly hasn't helped us out in the last 6 months either, but we recognize we still got to work on it.
I think that's true about a lot of things, right? But very, very key point there that the COVID-19 situation is not helping to accelerate things. But hopefully we're getting to the end of that, and we'll start to see some blue skies coming shortly. So kind of moving to the future, I think we've talked a lot about what's happening today and how things have been progressing so far. But as we think about the future, Bill, would love to hear your thoughts about what advancements are maybe in the works or what's coming next as we think about moving towards all PE films. I mean, you mentioned where adoptions have happened. What are your thoughts about the next ripe place for these things to start to move into?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. It's a great question. For us, I think it's important to keep the machinability of the film, or the pouch at the top of the list, working together. Again, it goes back to that previous question, but it's a collaboration, right? From a converter to an OEM and with the CPG. That's the most important thing, is designing to that and to provide something that's efficient and it's going to run as quickly and as good as it has been for the customer. But with that said, what's going to be needed from an advancement standpoint is, and I alluded to it earlier, is that advancement in oriented polyethylene and an MDO technology. From a sealing perspective, is what's that next best raw material from Dow to be used in the sealant layer that's going to provide us with the widest packaging window, a processing window. But from a barrier perspective, I know Larry alluded to nylon being incorporated with the compatibilizer, Retain, having that pass through APR protocols. We now have those design guidelines in place, and at least I would say they're tougher standards than what we had originally for how to recycle and store drop off. Now with the H2R's adoption of the APR guidelines and understanding of the third-party testing and what's been identified as innovations, how do we take those quote-unquote innovations and utilize them in combination and still meet the protocol for store drop-off recyclability? So I think it's taking it one step further and attacking some of the higher barrier, their higher end packaging, and pulling things and using things in combination, to make the advancement in the future. So I think that we've got an existing technology now that can be adopted across a large majority of markets, but we recognize that there's going to be continuous need for improvement going forward in those spaces.
Makes sense. Thank you. Larry, what about from your perspective, what are the latest advancements or what's coming next for monomaterial pouches?
Yeah, I think first Bill made a very good point. APR is recently published their critical guidance document for PE film and flexible recycling. Plastics Recyclers Europe recently put out the RECICLASS test protocols. And those, I think, are going to be very key to drive innovation, because up until now, until you had those tests, you had no real way to demonstrate that your structure was recyclable. And so by having these test protocols in place now, you can at least demonstrate recyclability, then that's going to help drive innovation. And so whether it's compatibilizing nylon or developing new sealant technology that allows for lower seal initiation temperature and better caulkability, improvements in oriented sealants, for example, can come into play. Also, there's this whole world of overprint varnishes and lamination adhesives that we haven't talked about yet as well. Which one of those are recyclable and which ones are not? That's been a big question the whole time I've been working in this space, is what about my lamination adhesive? And we've always kind of waved our hands. Now at least we have a test method, at least to test different lamination adhesive systems. And I'm sure we're going to find some are recyclable and some are not, but we need to start working on that to identify those things.
Yeah, good point. There's a lot of testing and evaluation that still needs to be done. Not only one, does the new structure meet the performance required, and then two, does it meet the guidelines as they're being developed and set forth by APR? So great point.
Just real quick, Michelle, I will point out too that we are working on higher barrier grade products. We recently released our Elite 6900, which is a best-in-class moisture barrier product. We're working with APR and as well as Bill and others on the examination of metallization of films and how those might be recycled as well.
Great, thank you. Guillaume, any other, I guess, points? And you also bring the global perspective. How are you seeing the next level of advancements? What are you seeing there?
Well, I will answer in a very not traditional manner. Michelle, let me just add to Bill's and Larry's point. We will keep supporting, and that's something that we have already proven with many of our customers and filmmakers, film converters, resin makers like Dow and Printpack. But let me just answer all these advancements have to be possible not only with new equipment, which is possible. We have already proven that. The most tricky case is that we have to make all these existing machines in the market, we're talking about thousands, make them capable to work with these new materials. And that's also part of the advancements, how we make these machines work with these new materials in a way that they can deliver the same results, if not better. And that's something that we have been considering, or we have been working at MESPAC at the same level as we have been working, developing new technologies or new equipment. And that's something that we do with SuperPro. That's our service arm within MESPAC and Durban Group. And we have service technicians, and we have retrofit kits that can be installed in the existing machine base so they can start to work not the day after with the needed modifications with these new sustainable materials. And that's needed because if not, there will be like a constraint for the implementation of these new materials and the implementation of these advancements. So advancements not only in new machines, but also in the existing ones. That's something that's important, and we should not forget about that.
It is very important because the capital investment to replace all of the existing equipment with new is not a feasible business case, I would imagine, for most companies. So thank you for adding that point. It is a critical one. So we have I don't want to miss the time for Q&A, and we have had some questions to come in. So I'm going to switch over to that. And maybe Larry, I'm going to come to you. And then to Bill. The first question I see here is, how do I demonstrate that my package is recyclable?
Well, I just mentioned the APR testing protocol, the new critical guidance test protocol, which you can find at plasticsrecycling.org. That goes through how to do this test protocol to demonstrate it. Right now, it does require third-party testing in order to get recognition for that approval. And that is also the test standard that the Sustainable Packaging Coalition is using to award the How to Recycle Store Drop-Off logo right now. In Europe, you could use Recyclass would be the main way to do that, or work through CFlex and their design guidelines as well. And other geographies have other rules. Typically, they may be borrowing from either Recyclass or from APR.
Okay, Bill.
Bill, you got something different?
You summed that up very well, Larry. No, the only thing I'll say is with those new guidelines, that the H2R, How to Recycle, and APR folks have put out there, they just kind of define what are innovations, quote unquote innovations, right? And nylons and EVOHs are in that category. The great news is that there's potential for all of those types of materials to be included in the stream. But without that, with that said, there may still be required testing, and at some level of cost now. where we didn't have that protocol in before. So having to go through that testing protocol going forward is what's needed to get those materials through and considered to be recyclable.
And Bill, maybe you can, one of the other questions I see here is when we talk about recycling flexible packaging, where and how does the store drop-off stream play in? Maybe you can talk a little bit about that and, clarify any points on that point.
Yeah, I guess it's pretty simple. That's really the only stream. From a polyethylene perspective, for flexible packaging, there's no collection at curbside. So what we have in place right now, through the How to Recycle and the WRAP program and store drop-off programs, that is it. There is, besides other companies working with dispositioning their waste to recyclers in the industry for post-industrial or whatever that may be, from a consumer perspective, from a post-consumer, that is the only stream that I'm aware of that we can work through. So it is the crucial piece that we need right now until we have an option for curbside recyclability here, at least in the U.S.
Yep.
And Michelle, if I could point out that the store drop-off is really applicable in the United States. There are some provinces in Canada that have curbside pickup. Quebec comes to mind, where they do curbside pickup of flexibles. And I think certain countries in Europe also have some curbside. I think Spain does. Guillaume, you may know more on that than I do, of what countries collect flexibles and which do not. But here in the U.S., the store drop-off program is the main way, and that's mostly because the material recovery facilities, when they were designed, were not designed to handle flexible packaging in their recycle stream.
So, Larry, to your point, we don't see in Europe many initiatives and in this regard, and that's basically for many reasons, but especially because we don't have an harmonized system in Europe yet in this regard. So it depends on if you talk about Spain or Germany or France, you have different legislation. And there is and CFlex is a clear example of that. There is an harmonization, but it's coming and it's not there yet. But let me address another point here. It's not just only to facilitate the drop-off in the store. It's also the recycling industry. And I see some of the partners, some of the players in this regard struggling in some specific parts of the process, recycling process, and especially in sorting. So from a machine manufacturer, we're helping them to facilitate them to better or faster identify if a material is a PE, a PP, or a complex material, just basically to make them easy in the sorting phase of the process, just at the beginning.
Yep. No, good points and perspective. Another question I see here, are laminated packages made of multiple materials being phased out?
Well, basically, we depends on multi-layer. If we talk about polyolefins, with all sincerity, we just see a ramp up. And that's basically because multi-layer could be a monomaterial. Just as an example, could be 2-layer or 3 layers with an inner low density PE and an outer layer of high density PE, and that's because of sealability properties and better resistance for the HDPE in the outer layer, or combined PE and PP structure, being the PE in the inner layer and the PP in the outer layer. So that's multi-layer, but it's just recyclable. And that's something that we see more and more examples. So I don't see necessarily a phase out. I just see a ramp up, and especially in the CPG brands with public commitments and in the regions where there are strong regulations against non-recyclable plastic.
Yeah, sure. I'll chime in really quickly. If you define the multi-material or multi-layer as being, for instance, a polyester with a polyethylene, or an OPP with a polyethylene, or a polyester with an OPP, those mixed materials, there is starting to be some phase out of that, with the adoption of all PE packages and laminates. So I guess it does depend on how you define it from a multi-layer perspective. So although the adoption has been fairly slow, there still seems to be a mad rush in a lot of cases. Here that we're working with a lot of CPGs on to transition some of those current packages that are in mixed materials into a recyclable structure. I will say in parallel that, as I think it was brought up earlier, but it's a good point, is as new products are introduced by CPGs, a lot of times the consideration now is, let's start with a recyclable structure. So that's a good thing, is that we are now all thinking about that as we launch out new products, and it's to the top of the conversation going forward.
Perfect. Thank you. One other, I guess, just one last question here, brief response maybe. Where do I start if I haven't taken any steps to move towards recyclable structures? Bill, maybe you want to make some comments or recommendations?
Come talk to us. Come talk to us. We'll point you in the right direction. Come to us with an end goal in mind, and we've got experience with it. We've been working on this for several years now. We think we've got a lot of the things ironed out, and are really pushing to put folks into how to recycle sort of drop off type packaging, if that's part of their CPG's commitment to 2025 next life. We see it as part of the solution, not necessarily the one and only solution. PrintPak's approach is multifaceted, but yeah, come talk to us. We'd love to help you.
So I answer it applies to Larry and Guillaume as well. So with that, I want to say thank you so much to our panelists for sharing their experiences and expertise today. I think that the discussion really emphasizes that in order for our industry to reach the sustainable future that we see, we have to continue to work together to tackle the hard issues and come up with the right science and technology-based solutions to address. So my deepest gratitude to you all for your time today. If there's additional questions or you want to talk more about recyclability, adhesives, and coatings more specifically, tomorrow at 1:15 p.m. Central Time, there will be a Dow networking session, and we hope that you will join us there. Larry will be there to answer any other questions, and a few other folks from the Dow team. So we look forward to chatting with you and answering any other additional points that you may want to cover. But with that, I'd like to thank the Global Pouch Forum for having us, and thank the viewers for joining us today. We hope to talk to you soon.